So if Trump wants to be a gangster and bully and said, I'm going to take your money if you win, doesn't he realize that when people straighten their backs up and have a spine and respond to his bully activity?
Anna Kasparian and Dr. Cornel West joined Abby Phillip on CNN, sitting across from a panel that leaned pretty MAGA, which is pretty common on Abby's show. The main topic was Donald Trump and the threats he's reportedly made towards Zohran Mamdani. Let's take a look at a few clips from that discussion with Anna Kasparian and Dr. Cornel West.
Tonight, Zohran Mamdani fires back at President Trump's threats to New York City funding. Over the weekend, Trump said Mamdani's campaign to be mayor will prove to be, quote, one of the best things to ever happen to our great Republican Party. He added that Mamdani, quote, needs the money from me as president in order to fulfill all of his fake communist promises. He won't be getting any of it, so what's the point of voting for him? Well, CNN's Aaron Burnett spoke to Mamdani about that threat tonight. Here's what he said.
So the number this year from the federal government was $7.4 billion to New York City. Are you okay if New York City loses that?
No, we will fight for every single dollar that the city currently receives from the federal government. And I look for examples across this country that showcase the best way to respond to Donald Trump's strengths is not collaboration, is his threats rather. It's responding with strength. And what we see in California is an attorney general of the state has estimated that for every dollar they spent on lawsuits against the federal government's threats to withhold funding, they won more than $30,000 in what would otherwise have been lost. And so we will take that same approach.
The paradox, of course, of Trump's post and also of his behavior in this whole situation is that he says this is so good for Republicans, and yet he seems to be willing to do almost anything to get Mamdani out of this race. It's too late now, more than likely, but why? Why is he playing both sides of this?
Abby, I think you're going to see more fireworks. I mean, Trump has a lot going for him in this particular case, just as Republicans have pointed to other Democrat politicians in the past and try to make them individuals that they identify with certain brands of the Democrat Party. And in this case, Mamdani has identified himself as a democratic socialist, or as conservatives would say, a communist. And so why wouldn't they play up some of the policy proposals and the cost of those and what it would mean in terms of the implications for the residents of New York City were he to be elected? And yes, you're going to see more.
But on what basis would Trump withhold $7.4 billion from New York?
Well, we know Congress controls the purse strings, so there's a lot that, that he would have to
He's going to really say, New Yorkers, you exercised your right to vote. We're going to take your tax dollars away from you.
Except New Yorkers spent almost 18% of GDP on federal taxes. I'm talking about New York City taxpayers, 18% of their GDP last year on paying federal taxes. The idea that the president is going to retaliate against local leaders just because he doesn't like their politics and withhold money that they're entitled to is ridiculous to me. And honestly, it sets up a really, really bad precedent. I would be disgusted if Biden did something like that. It disgusts me that Trump is threatening to do it just because he doesn't like Mamdani, doesn't like his politics, and wants to go against the will of voters in New York City.
Well, there's 2 points, if I can, that I want to make here. One is New York is the beating heart of the Democratic Party right now. One, you have a socialist, self-described socialist, that is not a pejorative, he says it himself, who's running for mayor of New York City. And you have Chuck Schumer, who is driving us towards a government shutdown because he's worried about a primary challenge from AOC. It is incredibly New York-centric, and it's the battle taking place in the Democratic Party.
True.
The second point is the former governor of Indiana, Mitch Daniels. I was at this event back in 2009 in my home county, Lake County, Indiana, which has had a troubled past. It's where Gary is located. But people were complaining about all the corruption and the grift that was happening there and asking him for help. And he said, quote, I believe in home rule and you're entitled to all the lousy, clumsy, graft-ridden government you're willing to pay for. All the socialism you're willing to vote for.
Fair enough.
Well, I tell you this, though, man, I'm glad that you even described Democratic Party having a heart, because it seems to me they've been so spineless.
I'm feeling nice tonight.
You're very, very kind.
Well, Dr.
But I would
West,
say this,
let me
though.
ask you this, because it's to your, perhaps to the point that you're going to make here. But the Democratic Party, it's a big question. What should they do with Mamdani? And in the New York Times, there was an argument that they should embrace the eat the rich populism, a scorching economic message delivered by political outsiders standing up to the powerful. The villains in this narrative are the elites at the top of the broken system. Do you think that that's right? The Democrats should just forget about the labels and just embrace the economic populism?
Oh, and it is a populism. It's not a socialism. Mamdani's not a socialist at all. This is New Deal liberalism, New Deal social democratic policies. And New York is not just the center of what you said to be the Democratic Party. It's the center of the national and international capitalist order. So if Trump wants to be a gangster and bully and said, I'm going to take your money if you win, doesn't he realize that when people straighten their backs up and have a spine and respond to his bully activity, if New York wanted to boycott the federal government as a city, the government would go down too. And there's an identity in New York that cuts across class. Brooklyn, boogie down Bronx, I live in Harlem. New York would be able to come together.
So, Pete Seat, the MAGA guest on Abby Phillip's panel, brought up Democrats running New York City. But here's what he didn't mention. Donald Trump, who led the Republican Party and lived in the White House, is also a New Yorker. So if we're talking about who runs New York, that logic doesn't really hold up. Anna Kasparian made a strong point in response. She reminded everyone that past presidents from both parties have always stepped up to support states after natural disasters, no matter who they voted for. But Trump treats that differently. Instead of leading with empathy, he tends to make it political. If a state or city isn't loyal to him, he talks about holding back relief funds. That's unfair because people in cities like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Portland pay federal taxes just like everyone else. Their money helps fund the same programs and disaster aid that every American relies on. And then there's the way MAGA uses labels. Anna highlighted how those words, socialist, communist, Marxist, even fascist, have lost all real meaning in their conversations. They've become catch-all insults for anyone who disagrees. Add woke to that list too. It's not about actual definitions anymore. It's just a way to discredit or shut down people they don't agree with.
So all this talk about socialism, that's just abstract so-and-so. Brother Zohran is a liberal, he's a social democrat, he's no revolutionary at all.
I actually agree with your take on that. And honestly, I think Mamdani represents the class-based politics that Trump pretended to be about and ran on both in 2016 and 2024.
And Brother Bernie
didn't deliver.
Ran on it too.
He did.
And many of us were with him, but
exactly.
He was unable to succeed at that level. But thank God the Brother Zohran, Kwame, Mamdani doing his thing.
I'll give you this much. I do think he's tapped into the issues that particularly young people care about. I mean, they can't afford housing in this country because the price is so high and interest rates are, at historic levels, and all of these challenges that they're encountering as they enter the world. The problem is that the policies that he's pursuing are not going to make things any better for them. And we know this because we can look at 4 years of Joe Biden and the spending spree that the federal government went on and what that meant for the cost of living and inflation in this country.
I think Joe Biden and Mamdani are very different. Joe Biden was all about public-private partnerships. For instance, like the infrastructure bill, which, Democrats love to talk about, love that it happened, but it really privatizes a ton of public infrastructure. There's a lot of corporate giveaways in there. Mamdani comes from a different school of thought.
Dr. Cornel West made a great point in this discussion. He explained that Zohran Mamdani isn't some extreme socialist. He's really just aligned with the classic New Deal ideas from the FDR era. And that's what's interesting. A lot of what people call radical today used to be mainstream Democratic politics. Kyle Kulinski often talks about this too, how Democrats could actually lean into those ideas instead of running from them. Because honestly, MAGA supporters are going to use the same labels no matter what. They've called Biden a socialist, a communist, even a fascist. The words have lost all meaning at this point. So instead of worrying about being called names, why not just focus on policies that actually help people? That's the point Anna Kasparian and Dr. Cornel West were making. The bigger issue isn't the right-wing noise. It's that many establishment Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi don't really want to move in that direction. And that could be a real problem heading into the midterms. Democrats can't just rely on saying Trump is bad, so vote for us. People want something real. They want action, not fear-based politics. Like Cornel West said, the party needs heart and vision again. If Mamdani wins, it might inspire other Democrats to follow his lead. And if the older guard won't make room, maybe a new generation will step up and push for that change themselves. So what do you think? Do you agree with Anna Kasparian and Dr. Cornel West here? Or do you find yourself siding more with the MAGA panelists like Pete Seed and Robbie? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more breakdowns like this.